Indeed we have. Thank you, Kieran. Yes, Ginetta Juniors heading out onto the racetrack then for their second race of the weekend. Now, those of you who tuned in yesterday or were here trackside yesterday to enjoy the first Ginetta Junior race will have seen Fred Green hang on to claim another race victory, a very important race victory in his quest to try and wrestle the championship away from Rocco Coronel. Rocco Coronel has been dominating the season. He's won by far the most races of anybody this year, and yet over the last couple of rounds his lead has started to dwindle. Fred Green has started to win with some more regularity, and what was at one time looking like a foregone conclusion that Rocco Coronel was going to wrap the championship up with a round to spare, i.e. this weekend, is now looking significantly less likely. I've had it confirmed to me by Simon Pace, and Simon, thank you so much for all of the updates you've been giving me all season long on championship points and the rest, that it cannot be wrapped up in this race, so it is at the very least going to go down to the third race later on. Fred Green lines up on pole position again for this one alongside Aussie driver George Proudfoot Nalder. Lewis Goff and Colin Cronin are together on row 2, ahead of Ethan Carney and Rocco Coronel row 3. Row 4 then will be Scott Lindblom and Emilio Del Grosso, then Torrin Byrne and Max Cuthbert, with Harry Bartle and Alfie Slater making up the 6th row. Row 7 for Josh Watts and Raoul Zanzaran. Jarrett Clark and Josh Henry are on row 8. Row 9, Revy Lake and Matthew Chihuahua. Row 10, Felipe Reich and Noah Young, with Henry Cameron even. Oh, dear me. Henry Cameron lining up on the back row of the grid all by himself. Right, championship standings coming in to this one. Again, thank you to Simon Pace, who is far better with a spreadsheet than I am, for sending me the updated points. Rocco Coronel, after dropped scores, is on 555 points, 484 points for Fred Green, second in the championship. That is, I can't work out the exact gap on air, but a fairly significant gap still. But if Fred Green can beat Rocco Coronel again in this race, which he did quite handsomely yesterday after Rocco got involved in an incident at the complex, then you never do know. It could still be possible for Fred Green to at least keep the pressure on Rocco until we get to the final round at Donington Park in a few weeks' time. Alfie Slater, third in the championship, was coming into the weekend a championship contender. However, he was disqualified from yesterday's race for, and I quote, causing a collision, repetition of serious mistakes, or the appearance of a lack of control over the car, which is not one but 3 good reasons for him to have had the book rather thrown at him yesterday. Alfie Slater starting the grey and green number 27 car from mid-grid for this second race of the weekend. Where's he going to be taking up the start? 12th on the grid, but he got involved initially in a big sort of pile-up at the complex on lap 2 of the race, which involved Rocco Coronel, ironically his R-Racing teammate, who just needed to keep his nose clean this weekend, and the championship was likely going to be his. And because of his teammate's ambitious move up the inside of a 3-wide situation into the complex, it ended up with Rocco off the road, and Coronel, with I think a slightly wounded car, could only finish 8th, whilst his championship rival Fred Green went on to win the race. So Fred Green, yes, had a bit of good fortune in that Rocco Coronel get caught up in something in the early stages of that one, but Fred still was able to go and fend off the challenge from his Elite Motorsport teammate Colin Cronin and Rocco's R-Racing teammate Scott Lindblom to hang on to the race victory. We're going to get another green flag lap here, as we always will with the Ginetta Junior Championship. So the Ginetta G56 safety car leads the field around, and green flag lap gets underway. So we've got a bit more time to build up to what is set to be, I'm sure, another enthralling race. So 11 wins on the season so far for Rocco Coronel. We've had 5 wins now for Fred Green, and bear in mind he won 2 of those in the first 4 races. It really did look like this was going to be a neck-and-neck championship battle between the 2 of them, but then Rocco just went on this incredible winning streak through the middle part of the year, and Fred only now has started to catch up, both in the points and as far as race wins are concerned. We've also had 3 wins this year for Alfie Slater, and that, I believe, is it. Just the 3 different race winners over the course of what's been still a fantastic season of racing. Yes, the championship's been a little more one-sided than we've been used to seeing in recent years, but the quality of the racing, really, I can't stress this enough, has been absolutely top-notch, and we saw that yesterday, Kieran, in what was a fascinating race, quite a tactical race, I think think it's fair to say, though. Fred Green had his teammate Colin Cronin behind him for much of that race, and you really kind of got the feeling, didn't you, that Colin, if an opportunity had presented itself, he might have gone for it, but he's not here to really make life difficult for his championship contending teammate.
No, and that's what he said in the interview after the race. Obviously, you couldn't hear it, unfortunately, but he was talking about how, yeah, he wanted to try and help Fred Green get a little bit closer to Coronel in the championship, and obviously with Coronel having such a disastrous, by his standards, race yesterday, it was really a massive pump of points for Fred Green at the front of the field. So it's exactly what he needed to keep his championship fight alive. Obviously, it's not impossible still for Rocco to win the championship today, yes, but it's made it a heck of a lot more difficult for him.
And it won't be in this race. No. It will go to race 3 at the very least, and only, I think, if he beats Fred Green in this one. So, of course, that's not guaranteed to happen because Rocco didn't have a brilliant qualifying session yesterday. It's a quirky qualifying format in Ginetta Juniors. They are only allowed 3 flying laps. They all go out together, but they're only allowed 3 flying laps. And with things like track limits and traffic being a factor, it's difficult sometimes to hook together those 3 flying laps. He ended up 7th on the grid yesterday and 6th on the grid based on second fastest lap times for this one, whilst Fred Green notched up 2 pole positions. So he is looking pretty good. There's also a 3-place grid penalty, I'm just noticing, for Jarrett Clark for causing a collision in yesterday's race. So he's going to be starting a little bit further down than you might have expected. 15th for Jarrett Clark when he should have been just outside the top 10.
Interestingly as well, he's right alongside his teammate, Scott Lindblom.
Yes.
Obviously, Lindblom found his way up onto the podium yesterday, so we saw the cars working together yesterday. May they work together today? We're going to find out now as the green flag is, the lights are about to go off. Lights are off, and away they go.
Fred Green then looks to try and convert pole position into the race lead on the run down into Clervaux corner, which he does. George Proudfoot-Nalder slots in behind. You don't often see a lot of overtaking on the run into the first corner in Ginetta Juniors because they're so low on power. It's actually very difficult to make a bad start, and so Fred Green proves the point, leads them single file for the most part anyway through the first couple of corners. It is on the run down the back straight where the slipstream will start to take effect. Is that Rocco Coronel side by side with Scott Lindblom? It was, and Coronel had to take the shortcut at the chicane because his teammate was up the inside. What was that you were saying about teammates working together, Kieran? That certainly seems to have gone out of the window in the early stages because Lindblom's going through on the inside into Tower Corner. That's the first side-by-side battle then between the 2 Red Bull liveried cars, and yes, Scott Lindblom has managed to get ahead of his teammate Rocco Coronel. That was not according to the script as far as Rocco is concerned. Up towards the Jim Clark S as we go then. Fred Green and George Proudfoot-Nalder. Now, will they work together here to try and get away from the rest of the pack? We've seen drivers do this a few times this year. If you're going to make a break, you've got to work with the driver immediately in front of you.
I think that's probably the most sensible thing for them to do. Work together, because we've got 18 minutes, a 20-minute race this is. It's a long, long old race, so they need to work together to make sure that that man on your screen there, Rocco Coronel, and of course Scott Lindblom, don't catch up too quickly. Then they can start to have a battle. There's a massive side-by-side little battle going on for fourth place, as Lindblom and Coronel are getting involved with the, I can't see who that is.
Ethan Carney that was, and they've both gone past Ethan Carney, so that's now 4th for Lindblom and 5th for Coronel, so actually he's still gained a place. Who is it that's dropped down the order then? Somebody's had an iffy start from in that front group, because it was Cronin, isn't it? Colin Cronin actually isn't showing as having, now he's come across the line in 17th, so Colin Cronin's been off the road somewhere in the Elite Motorsport car. I remember 2nd yesterday, but all the way down in 17th at the end of lap 1.
Yeah, and Lindblom just went slightly off the track as well, coming through Hawthorne there, who's obviously very, very on the limit. But yeah, they come through the chicane now in 4th and 5th respectively, as you've said. They've got Lewis Goff right up ahead of them. There is a bit of a gap between the 2 Red Bull cars and the number 4 of Goff as we come into Tower for the second time of asking. Side by side a little bit further back. I can't see who that is quite, but yeah, so if you're the 2 Red Bull teammates, obviously we've seen a little bit of argy-bargy already, so when that side-by-side goes off the track at Tower, still side-by-side, coming down towards the Jim Clark S's. S's.
That might be 3 wide, you know. Emilio Del Grosso was in the middle of that. I don't like the idea of 3 wide through the Jim Clark S's. They've got back to single file, I can tell you, out of the window, but Emilio Del Grosso, Torrin Byrne and another were definitely 3 abreast coming out of the turn. It might have been Max Cuthbert maybe, who I'd noticed getting shuffled out of line on the way into Tower Corner. So 17 minutes to go. It already feels like a junior race, this, doesn't it? Although at the front, pretty calm, as I do think Fred Green and George Proudfoot-Nalder are working together quite well. Remember, George hunting for his first win of the year. He's had 1 podium finish, but it's been a season for George Proudfoot-Nalder that has got progressively better and better and better with every race that's gone by. There's a spin from Emilio Del Grosso, and he's pointing the wrong way right in the middle of the road. Others have to scatter to the grass in avoidance. That is not the first time we've seen that number 5 car off the road this weekend, Kieran.
No, it is not. I saw in the pit lane that car being, after it had been recovered, as for an off, I think it was at Sunny Out.
Yes, in qualifying.
Yes, in qualifying yesterday morning. So a bit of a difficult weekend there for Valentino Del Grosso. It started 8th place on the grid, so it dropped right the way down. Now, where is to 21st, so it's right in last place now. So, yeah, a lot of work to do. What have you just spotted?
There's a car in the fence at Clairvaux. There was a lot of squeezing going on. It's a white car. I can't see from here who it is. We'll try and pick that up on the cameras in a moment, but there was a lot of squeezing going on into Clairvaux Corner, and the car on the outside just got fired out of line and headed straight for the barriers. We'll try and pick that up in a moment or two. Meanwhile, at the front of the field, fastest lap goes to George Proudfoot-Nalder, and if they are working together, which I think they must be, it's working, because they're 1.6 seconds ahead now of Lewis Goff, who is also chasing his first podium of the year. So Lewis Goff, who I don't think has done a full season, no, he only joined us last time out at Brands Hatch, was immediately impressive, just missed out on a podium. Well, he's in a podium position now, albeit 1.6 seconds off the leading 2.
Yeah, but look at those 2 Red Bull.
Safety car, I
yes,
presume. Yes,
that makes sense.
Safety
But
car.
what I was just about to say, there was that car off the track. But what I was just about to say is Lewis Goff was being significantly caught by those 2 Red Bull cars. So it's that's safety car's probably come at a really, really good time for him, because once the race restarts, he'll be able to cling onto the back of Green and Nalder. Now, that is the number 22. In the wall, which is Josh Watts. So he's gone off down at Hawthorne. Now, you said you saw what happened.
Well, as I sort of, he was on the outside of another car going down the main straight. It would have been, I think, Raul Zanzaran, who was trying to squeeze through on the grass, actually, down the main straight. In fact, it was Raul in the sort of purple and black car. And there was a touch of wheels as they went into Clairvaux. Josh Watt's car fired off to the left-hand side and I think has just made contact, light contact maybe, with the tyre barrier on the outside of the track. So Josh Watt's unfortunately out of the race, and that means the safety car has to be scrambled. That's very clearly a dangerous position if anyone else were to go off at that part of the track. And that means all of this talk of Fred Green and George Proudfoot-Nalder working together sort of flies out the window now, doesn't it? Because they'll all bunch back together again. Lewis Goff will be right on their tail in 3rd, and I think we're going to have a real race on our hands when we go racing once more.
Now, if you were Fred Green and George Nalder, what would you do? Because I think it's clear that they've got a little bit of pace over Lewis Goff, and obviously the 2 Red Bulls need to try and get past Goff as quickly as possible, which they possibly can do on that first lap. But if Fred Green and Nalder can just start to pull away initially from Lewis Goff, they might be able to build enough of a gap that they can then basically have them 2 as a pair versus the 2 Red Bulls as well. And that could be a very interesting and spicy battle going towards the end of the race. But if you're Lewis Goff now, it's possibly a nerve-wracking prospect of what's about to happen once we go racing again.
Yeah, well, it's an interesting situation, this, because you've got really no teammates aligned at the front of the field apart from Lindblom and Rocco Coronel. Elite Motorsport driver Fred Green leading the way. Then you've got George Proudfoot-Nalder, who runs with MDD Racing, and Lewis Goff, who is the only, or one of only 2 Project R drivers entered into the championship, the other one being Max Murray, who sadly isn't here after his nasty accident at Brands Hatch last time. Max, if you're watching, by the way, we wish you the best. That was a scary accident that he was involved in at Brands Hatch last time out, and I believe he's targeting a return to the track in the Winter Series, which will be part of the Walter Hayes Trophy event at the end of the year at Silverstone, and we really hope that's going to be the case. It would be nice to have Max back out on track. But yeah, point I'm making is those top 3 cars all run for different teams, and then you've got the 2R Racing teammates behind. So if team tactics is going to come into this, it's more likely to centre around those Red Bull liveried R racing cars. But it is intriguing to me that Scott Lindblom has taken the fight to Rocco Coronel in this race so far, and at the moment, doesn't look all that likely to simply move out of the way for him. He's going for a good result all by himself. Right, Ginetta G56 safety car accelerating away. A beautiful noise it makes, by the way. V8 engine thundering around the Croft circuit, and that means that Fred Green is now in control of the pack as they make their way down through the complex. When and where does he decide to accelerate? Well, there's your answer, just as they turn into the right-hand element of the complex, and he's hoping to try and catch George Proudfoot-Nalder on the hop slightly. They all concertina together through the hairpin. Remember, no overtaking allowed until you cross the timing line, so they could get as close as they want to each other through the hairpin, but you're not allowed to actually make a move until now on the run down into Clairvaux corner. Fred Green then, decent restart, 0.4 of a second his advantage. It's more or less the same as what it was really before the safety car came out. It is Lewis Goff in third who has benefited, although already, I would say, Kieran, dropping back into the clutches of Scott Lindblom.
Yeah, 100%. Lindblom has made a fantastic start. He's pulled a little bit away from his teammate of Rocco Coronel, and coming down now towards Tower Corner, the wind is going down. He's going to have that benefit of the slipstream. But actually, look at the front two. They're getting very, very close. George Nalder and Fred Green. See somebody off a bit further back, but no changes as of yet, apart from Lindblom up the inside of Lewis Goff, and I believe he then takes third place. Now, he's now splitting the two Red Bull cars, so how long before Rocco Coronel also has a move on him as we come through the Jim Clark S's? This is really anyone's game, because you can see the gap now that Fred Green and George Nalder have managed to give. But if Rocco Coronel can get past Lewis Goff as quickly as he can, those two Red Bull cars can work together to try and close that gap up to the leaders. And since they have only been going half a lap to build that lead, it's possible they'll be able to close it quite quickly as well. But for the time being, Lewis Goff is being a bit of a thorn in the side of Rocco Coronel. He's being exactly where he wants to be, and he really needs to be, to keep the championship fight. Well, it's a championship fight, but his idea of trying to win it this afternoon alive as somebody goes off a bit further back.
That is Jarrett Clark, who I don't think did that all by himself. I only caught the very end of it. Meanwhile, Lewis Goff back up the inside of Scott Lindblom for third and ushers him to the edge of the road, and that allows Rocco Coronel through. So Lewis Goff goes third, and Rocco Coronel jumps up into fourth position ahead of his teammate Scott Lindblom. So Scott might not have been wanting to move aside for Rocco Coronel, but Lewis Goff moved him aside for him. So Lewis back into third, and Rocco Coronel up to fourth. I'm glad he did that before I had the chance to make the point I was about to make, because the point I was about to make was, I think Lewis Goff is a sensible driver, and I think he'll work with the R-Racing drivers to try and catch up to the leaders. Clearly that wasn't in the game plan. He made the move and he's got back into third. Now though, he's got a real fight on his hands. Rocco Coronel right in behind, and Rocco will know that if he can get into third place, he should have the pace to go after the race leaders.
Yes, and speaking of, I've just seen George Nalder just get a little bit of a bump to Fred Green going down towards Tower, so they are very much working together at this stage. They are not wanting to fight. They are wanting to try and build that gap to Goff and the two Red Bulls right behind them, because the sooner they start racing and battling and going side by side, the sooner that gap will come right down. So they need to try and build that gap as quickly as they can, and Lewis Goff really is just being the stopper at the moment in the Red Bull, just absolute well, not dominance, but it's just steamroller. That's what I was looking for. Steamroller through the pack at the moment, with Coronel just trying to get past. You can see he's now looking to the right-hand side of Lewis Goff, but Lewis Goff is on the inside, coming through into the complex. They are fully side by side as Coronel goes off the track, and now Lindblom goes past Lewis Goff as well. So a bit of a contact between Coronel and Goff there, allowing Lindblom to come up into third position, locking up the wheels, trying to keep that position away from Goff, and that's allowed Coronel to fall right back into the pack as somebody else goes a bit further off the track.
Oh, it's all kicked off at the back here, but we'll get to that in a moment, because that is again huge disaster for Rocco Coronel. What does he have to do to get a good result at the moment? Rocco Coronel comes across the line in 7th position. It really looked like he was just managing that race, letting it come to him, and he just can't buy any good fortune. He's rejoined, thankfully for his sake, behind two of his teammates, actually, Max Cuthbert and Alfie Slater, who, remember, started all the way down in 12th position, the man who was disqualified yesterday for causing an incident at that very corner. Well, he is directly ahead of his teammate now, Rocco Coronel, and could potentially be in a position to try and help him. So what does this mean? Well, as you quite rightly said, Scott Lindblom's into third now. Lewis Goff once again is trying to get ahead of him down at Tower, and was that a sneaky little attack from George Proudfoot-Nalder against Fred Green? It looked to me like Fred was defending a bit more, and there's damages there to George Proudfoot-Nalder's car. I think there's something flapping around underneath that second place car.
It did look like that, and we have seen a little bit of dust being kicked up, so I wonder if he's maybe run wide a little bit somewhere off camera and perhaps picked up a little bit of damage to the floor, but we'll see that. I think it's only really the camera down at Tower where you can get a proper good look underneath the car, so we'll have to wait another full lap to see. But on your screen now is Rocco Coronel stuck down in 7th position behind the number 27 of Alfie Slater, so really not going the way he wanted to go, and if it continues this way then he won't even be able to win the championship in the 3rd race later on. So it's not exactly what he's after this weekend so far, but he's still got another couple of races to go as he goes up the inside of Alfie Slater to take 6th place down the start-finish straight. He's only got a couple more cars to get back to where he was before. Yeah,
Alfie didn't make that too difficult for his teammate. Remember, it's not the same livery on Rocco Coronel's car, but it is an R Racing car. The grey cars with the fluorescent highlights, they are all run under the R Racing awning, as are the 2 Red Bull Junior drivers, Scott Lindblom and Rocco Coronel. So he is surrounded by friends at the moment, I suppose, Rocco Coronel. Max Cuthbert is the next man that he needs to try and find a way past, and that would get him back into 5th position. Through the chicane they go then. The leaders in the 1 minute 40.7s. It's 1 minute 40.9s then for Lindblom and Goff. So they are not quicker, not as quick as the leaders right now. It was then a 40.7 for Cuthbert and a 40.6 for Coronel. So despite that overtake that he had to make, he was still the fastest car on the track that time.
It looks also like they just collected that tyre barrier that caused a bit of an issue earlier on in the City Cup car race. So hopefully that's not going to cause an issue to the end of the race, and the marshals can obviously reposition it at the end. But for the time being, I have just spotted Lewis Goff, I believe, is working with Lindblom now to try and close up the gap, as we see Rocco Coronel take that 6th position away from the number 34 of Max Cuthbert. So that's another position. He's now up into 5th place, I meant to say, not 6th. But he's got a bit of a gap now between himself and Lewis Goff and his teammates. So whether he can work together with Max Cuthbert, we're going to see. But it's not a massive, actually, gap he's got to close looking at it out of our window.
No, it's not really, is it? And I think because Lindblom and Goff are battling quite hard, as are Ethan Carney and Alfie Slater, who gets into his teammate Max Cuthbert, and that could so easily have involved Rocco Coronel as well. The R Racing teammates are not playing nicely this weekend. Cuthbert goes around, and that was all because Slater was distracted by Ethan Carney's lunge behind him, and it just ended in the tiniest little bit of contact, and around, I'm afraid, has gone Max Cuthbert. So Cuthbert will rejoin stone dead last behind Felipe Reich, another one of his R Racing teammates who was also involved in a skirmish at the complex a couple of laps ago, at about the same time that Rocco Coronel ended up off the road. The point I was about to make is that Scott Lindblom and Lewis Goff are busy battling, so I do think that could allow Rocco Coronel to get onto their tail before too much longer. There is absolutely no way on this earth that Lewis Goff will settle for 4th place. He's going to have a go, and he has had a go right on cue, launches to the inside and gets back ahead of Scott Lindblom.
Yeah, 100%. This is not helping Rocco Coronel keep in touch with the leaders at all. It's not helping Scott Lindblom keep in touch with the leaders, but it is really falling into the hands of Fred Green and George Nalder, because they are now, what was it last time over? They were 2 seconds ahead, so I'd imagine that's probably getting on close to 3 seconds a gap now with that overtake that they've just had, and they are really fighting tooth and nail. So I wonder if Lewis Goff has seen that gap and has gone, nah, yeah. I'm not bothered about that now. I'm just going to make sure this Red Bull car doesn't stay in front of me.
Well, he realised they weren't catching the leaders. He also had a great view of Rocco Coronel catching them and thought, I don't want to deal with that. So he wants to get ahead of Lindblom, and hopefully the R Racing teammates will do battle behind him. So that might be a well-timed move, actually, for Lewis Goff, who is ultra-defensive into the final hairpin. Lindblom tries to go right round the outside. That's not likely to work, and he has to cut back into line coming off the corner. Down across the timing line we go again then. And Fred Green with this lead. When does George Proudfoot Nalder make his move? That's my question. We've got 3.5 minutes to go. So what's that? 2 more laps probably in the race. When is George Proudfoot Nalder going to decide it's time to go for the lead? Oh, Lewis Goff goes through the dirt at Clervaux, gets dirt on his tyres, slides through Hawthorne, somehow keeps Scott Lindblom behind, but Rocco Coronel is very much a part of this battle now, so keep one eye to the leaders, but another eye very much focused on the championship leader, because he could be in a position shortly to go for the podium. Here is George Proudfoot Nalder, though. He is now making his move for the lead and forces Fred Green to defend into tower, as Scott Lindblom does the same to Lewis Goff.
Yeah, 100%. And I was just about to say that I think think Fred Green and George Nalder will wait until this is the last lap board. I was wrong. I didn't even say it, and they proved me wrong. But you can see now that Rocco Coronel is going to the right-hand side of Scott Lindblom to try and overtake his teammate. But you can see the leaders now coming down through the back end of the circuit towards Sunny in the Sunny. And look at Lewis Goff and Scott Lindblom. They are nose to tail. Lewis Goff is just trying to defend his position, and Scott Lindblom found his way up the inside.
Oh,
and Lewis Goff goes off the road. That's not what he wanted. I think there might have been a little bit of a touch there, or Lewis Goff just had a little bit of understeer and just unlocked the car a little bit, and he went sliding off the circuit. That's not what he needed, and he's now let pass both of the Red Bull cars. That is exactly what he didn't want to be doing. He's now fallen into the clutches of Alfie Slater and is that Harry Bartle,
yeah.
as well. Yes, so...
Kieran Rocco lunges up the inside of Scott Lindblom, goes third, so Rocco Coronel into the podium places. I don't think that was an assisted move, if you like. I think he had to make that lunge, but he has gone through into the position. Do you know what? I think they've got time for 2 more laps as well, although after what happened yesterday, I won't hold my breath. But we should have time for 2 more laps. They came through with about 7 extra seconds, I think, so there might be 2 more laps left for George Proudfoot-Nalder to have a go at the race win. Rocco Coronel into a podium place. It's not enough to seal the championship in this race, but he is at least limiting the damage being done by Fred Green, who of course may not yet win this race.
No, 100%. They are so nose to tail at the moment, coming up towards Tower. The 2 Red Bull teammates, I wonder if they are starting to work together. Now that they're back together, as you can see there, that Fred Green just goes to the right-hand side. Now they pulls to the left-hand side to try and get that cut back, but still, no, that doesn't seem to be working. And we've seen that time and time again throughout the weekend so far. Trying to get the cut back around Tower doesn't seem to be that effective as you see in other corners. And in all fairness, we've seen more overtakes around the outside of that than seeing the cutback working there. So it's a difficult one. But yeah, with this is the penultimate lap. We're waiting for the 2 Red Bull cars now. Yeah, I wonder if they are working together. It doesn't seem...
I don't think so.
You're not?
I don't think so. That was a defensive line from Rocco Coronel, and the attitude of Scott Lindblom's car tells me that he wants this position back. So it's always an interesting thing in junior racing. Yes, they're teammates, but they're all paying quite a lot of money to be here, racing for the top team, R-Racing, as they have been in recent years. Why on earth should Scott Lindblom settle for 4th place when there's an opportunity maybe for him to pick up what would only be his 6th podium finish of the year? Good battle going on here further back. Meanwhile, Lewis Goff trying to recover things slightly is up alongside Colin Cronin, who's caught the Harry Bartle and Alfie Slater battle. Slater drifts wide at the hairpin. Bartle gets to the inside, but again, hard to keep the momentum up on the inside line, isn't it, through that final hairpin. Right, final lap begins then. Fred Green with the lead, but George Proudfoot-Nalder, I am fairly confident, is going to have a go down the back straight. That's where he's been closing lap after lap after lap. I think he has to an extent been waiting until the final lap for his opportunity, and now is the time to pull the pin. Through the chicane he goes. He could not be closer to Fred Green, and does immediately pull out of the slipstream, goes to the outside line, gets the side draft, gets his nose ahead. He's got all the momentum in the world. Can he clear Fred Green into the braking zone? On the outside line, Fred will stand his ground on the inside. Watch for the switchback maybe from George Proudfoot-Nalder. No, keeps his foot in it, goes right round the outside line. Fred Green ushers him over to the edge of the road, leaves just enough room. They are side by side into the Jim Clark S's for the final time. George Proudfoot-Nalder going for his first ever win in the Ginetta Junior Championship has got the lead, has he? They're still side by side, sideways for George Proudfoot-Nalder, right round the outside. He's done it. George Proudfoot-Nalder gets the lead away. Fred Green back on the inside into Sunny In. This is sensational stuff, and Fred Green gets the lead back on the inside line into Sunny In, and George Proudfoot-Nalder will have it all to do into the final sequence of corners. I thought he'd made that move at the perfect time, but he couldn't quite close the door into Sunny. It is Fred Green that leads. They touch as they approach the complex. To the outside line goes George Proudfoot-Nalder. The door is slammed in his face by Fred Green, who now just has to defend into the hairpin, and it will be another race victory for Fred. A 6th of the season. Proudfoot-Nalder to the inside. There's almost contact. Again, there's not quite the space, and Fred Green is going to do it again. A 6th victory of the season under the most intense pressure from George Proudfoot-Nalder. Victory for Fred Green, 2nd George Proudfoot-Nalder, and Rocco Coronel is on the podium in 3rd, and you would not have guessed that about 10 minutes or so ago when he was fired off the road at the complex. That was fantastic stuff. Ginetta Junior Racing at its best. There's a good battle going on here further back as well, involving the 21 and Matthew Chihuahua, who went off the road earlier on at the chicane and has recovered quite nicely into 16th place by the flag. Well, That was quite a good race, wasn't it? I think we can all agree. Fred Green may have led, I think on the lap charts, he will show us having led every single lap, but that doesn't do that race justice because George Proudfoot-Nalder had him under intense pressure right the way through to the end and did have the lead. He did everything right, George Proudfoot-Nalder, around the outside at Tower. He got ahead through the Jim Clark S's and just couldn't quite get to the inside line out of Barcroft to cover the position into Sunny, and through on the inside slipped Fred Green. And that is why he is a six-time winner in the 2025 season. He will close the gap fractionally on Rocco Coronel. And he will be, well, let's see, he gets 35 points for a win. Proudfoot-Nalder had the bonus for the fastest lap. So Fred Green will get 35 points. Rocco, I believe, will get 26. That shouldn't count as a drop anymore for Rocco Coronel. And so it will be a 9-point gain for Fred Green. It is still a very, very healthy championship lead, though, for the Dutch driver on his quest to be crowned the 2025 Ginetta Junior Champion. Right, Fred Green the winner then, George Proudfoot-Nalder second, Rocco Coronel third, and Scott Lindblom in fourth ahead of Alfie Slater. Brilliant recovery drive that from Slater, having started in the middle of the grid. Harry Bartle was sixth ahead of Lewis Goff and Colin Cronin. Ethan Carney, Rouse and Zarin in the top 10. He's not had that many top 10 finishes this year. Torrin Byrne and Jarrett Clark complete the top 12. Then it was Noah Young, Revy Lake, Henry Cameron, Matthew Chihuahua, Josh Henry, Emilio Del Crosso after another couple of dramas in that one. Max Cuthbert, really unlucky Max Cuthbert there with that spin at the hairpin. Felipe Reich in 20th, and Josh Watts, of course, the only non-finisher in the end after his gravelly excursion up at Clervaux Corner. Right, so the cars then head down into the pit lane. I'm genuinely short of breath after that. That was a fantastic conclusion to the race, and we get to do it all again later on. We've got a third race for the Ginetta Juniors to come later this afternoon. I've just had a points update as well from Simon Pace, who says, as it stands, barring any changes to that race result, Rocco Coronel can potentially win the championship in race 3. We'll have full points and permutations once that result is confirmed. So by the time we get the juniors out later on this afternoon, we'll be able to let you know whether that is, or just what has to be done by Rocco Coronel to claim the championship. 3:10 is the scheduled time for the Ginetta Juniors third race of the weekend. Right, lots to unpack after that one, and we've got just the man to do the job. Kieran Mogg is down in the pit lane with our top 3 finishers.
Thank you very much. Yes, they're just having a bit of a chat with their teams after that absolutely astonishing race. They're just taking the helmets off, and I think Rocco is the first one with the helmet off. So let's have a quick chat with the third place finisher. So once you've got your balaclava off, Rocco, that was a particular recovery drive. Really, really well done there.
Yeah, it was difficult. Some guys were defending a lot and not focusing to the front. After some guys spin out and me and Scott were driving away, I was a bit fast, so I was trying to push, and then the guys in front were gone, so I thought the last 2 laps, so I'll defend. But eventually it worked out. It was a good race and a lot to learn from.
100%. Obviously, he had a bit of an issue with Lewis Goff trying to get past him because he was putting up quite a sterling defence against you and Scott. But obviously, he just managed to get past him in the end. So it was a really fantastic drive, and it means that you are still able to win the championship later on. Is that something that you're thinking about?
No, I'm just thinking about winning this whole weekend. I'll see what the championship is about. I just want to win everything I want. Not thinking about championship because it will bring more pressure. Just drive until you want to go to the top.
Absolutely. Well, congratulations, and hopefully we'll see you up here again later on. Thank you. Right, let's have a quick chat with our second place finisher, George Proudfoot-Nalder. George, you did absolutely everything you could do. That was an astonishing drive. Obviously, it just didn't work out in the end, but that last lap battle between you was incredible.
Yeah, thank you. It was a very good race between me and Fred. We just pushed away from the rest of the pack, and then last 2 laps sort of gave it everything we could. Got very close, so we'll try again this afternoon.
And it's clear to see you have a lot of respect between the two of you because you were leaving each other just enough racing room to get by. But obviously, is it good to have that confidence in each other that you can go wheel to wheel to that extent and come out the other side no problem?
Yeah, definitely. It's sort of good to be able to have a really good, clean, hard race with other drivers. So yeah, I'll look forward to it again in the next race with Fred. So yeah, thank you.
100%. Well, congratulations, and hopefully again we'll see you up here later on.
Cool. Thank you.
Thank you. Let's have a quick chat with our winner, Fred Green. Second time this weekend, and that one was particularly difficult and a bit more difficult than yesterday, I think.
Yeah, for sure. George worked really well with me for like the first sort of 3/4 of the race, and yeah, we managed to build a gap. We were both really fast, and then yeah, we had a brilliant race at the end. The last lap was a bit more exciting than I would have hoped, but yeah, I managed to pull off a really nice move and got back in the lead. But yeah, it was really good.
Talk to us about that move, because obviously he'd got ahead of you just coming into that little complex, and then into Sunny Inn. You just made a dive out of absolutely nowhere. We were going hysterical in the commentary box. Like, that was incredible.
Yeah, I was going hysterical as well. I was loving it. Yeah, through the S's he managed to get in front of me, and then yeah, he had the edge of me going into Sunny Inn, and I just sent it, and yeah, I managed to stick, and yeah, it was a really good move, and yeah, really happy to get another win.
Same again later?
That's the plan. I'm looking forward to hopefully a bit of rain, sort of make it a bit more relaxing, but yeah, we'll see.
Awesome. Well, congratulations. And right, that wraps it up. I can see some minis have come out onto the circuit. So, Andy, back to you.